So as Hans already pointed out, I'm representing here EURO-Biomaging and EURO-Biomaging ERIC. And I've been working for this infrastructure for imaging technologies now for a decade. And I will present you a little bit today about our services and what EURO-Biomaging can offer for the scientific communities. But I mainly want to illustrate the collaboration between EURO-Biomaging and Instruct, and also involving iNEXT-Discovery. Because I'm convinced that we can achieve a lot, in particular during these rather difficult times of the pandemic, when we commonly promote our accesses and the networking and the outreach program. So, but where did this all start? So I want to take you back a little bit in time, because 20 years ago, the European countries decided that they want to have a strategic approach to prioritize their funding into infrastructure investments. And so they came up with this European Strategy Forum for Research Infrastructures, in brief ESFRI. Hans had already mentioned before that EURO-Biomaging is a landmark on the ESFRI roadmap, and so is Instruct. And at that time, 20 years ago, the countries invited via this forum the scientific communities to prioritize, to suggest those topics in the sciences that they feel are in particular a need and would benefit from a coordinated approach to research infrastructure investment, to submit their suggestions to ESFRI. And after a long and complex evaluation process, many topics were identified and are now translated into actual research infrastructures. So on this slide, you see 13 of those research infrastructures in the life sciences that are on the famous ESFRI roadmap. 10 of these are now ESFRI landmarks, 6 are still projects, and 13 of these are working together in the Life Sciences Research Infrastructure Group. These research infrastructures now have opened in a coordinated fashion their technology platforms and services to the European scientific community. And they are open to all scientists, and the scientists can approach us with their questions when they're looking for expertise, when they're looking for support for a certain research project, to have access to the technology platform. But they also can get help from the infrastructures to have funding opportunities to pay for those access. The access can come in 3 different forms. I think the most familiar one to many of us in this audience is the one in person, the one that is also not possible right now because of the lockdown situation across Europe and globally. So in person means that the researcher would usually apply for access and then visit the technology platform or the training course. But there's also remote access, something that some of us are also now getting used to and replacing the physical access from before. This could be then in form of sending the sample by the researcher to the research infrastructure. And last but not least, of course, there's virtual access to services such as online data resources. In today's talk, I would like to highlight, as mentioned before, these 2 infrastructures, Instruct ERIC and EURO-Biomaging ERIC, which are providing access to structural biology methods and imaging technologies. So imaging technologies, as you know, have revolutionized the life sciences in the past 20 years. So in parallel to the development of the ESFRI research infrastructures, we have seen this incredible development in the field of the imaging technologies. So now we can visualize and measure a broad spectrum of molecular and cellular processes from nanometer scale upwards. They provide incredible accuracy and coverage, and in real time we can now visualize the molecular processes of life and the basis of human diseases in living cells and tissues. But it doesn't stop here, because we really would like to take this to the next level, to integrate these technologies, to correlate these technologies. And this can happen by adding new technologies to the scope, but also by coming up with smart workflows of existing new technologies as represented here. In addition, we can integrate the outcoming image data from these imaging technologies and thereby provide new opportunities to the researchers. And I think that all of you know that many science centers around Europe and the world are already doing exactly this, that they are working together to correlate imaging technologies, to correlate image data, and to open up these new possibilities. And in INSTRUCT and in EURO-Biomaging, both of us are working at this interface, and we are also working together to make this happen. In addition to the technical and scientific collaboration of INSTRUCT and EURO-Biomaging at this interface, we already started a decade ago, when we were still only projects and in our planning phases, to successfully collaborate. So one important point was that together we learned to speak with one voice in the Life Sciences Research Infrastructure Strategy Group, where 13 of the infrastructures come together to explain to the policymakers, for example, in Brussels and elsewhere at the European and at the national level, the importance of open access to European research infrastructures. And just for you to note, INSTRUCT is currently chairing this strategy group on behalf of the life sciences. We also have been building and providing already common services for the scientists by combining and linking existing technology platforms together, and by working together on data integration, data management, and cloud readiness for the European Open Science Cloud. And we are working together on outreach and communication. For example, the activities such as the one today, and I would also like to mention later on the EURO-Biomaging Pub, where we would like to invite iNEXT-Discovery, are activities where we can easily promote not only that access is important to infrastructures, but also what each of us can contribute, and tell each other's users community what the other infrastructure might be able to help in case of the advanced research projects. Last but not least, we have developed 2 collaboration agreements between INSTRUCT and EURO-Biomaging, clearly defining our service offers and commonalities, so that it's also very clear to the users and our communities what each of us are doing. The first collaboration agreement was signed in 2012, and the second one in 2019. And in this one, we have clearly stated that the INSTRUCT electron microscopy services focus on molecular structure determination at the atomic and molecular level. And the EURO-Biomaging electron microscopy services focus on ultrastructural morphology, determination, and correlation with light microscopy at the subcellular, cellular, and organismal scales. So this really helps us now to clearly also talk to our facility staff, to work together with the researchers when they approach INSTRUCT and EURO-Biomaging, to understand better where to go for which kind of service. In addition, in this collaboration agreement, we are also highlighting how we can work together on common training opportunities, to work together, for example, on remote access provision, to work together on international outreach and collaboration, as it is already taking place, for example, in the Latin American field. With this, I would like to conclude the first part of my presentation and tell you a little bit more about what actually is EURO-Biomaging and what are we providing. So EURO-Biomaging is the European research infrastructure for biological and biomedical imaging. So it's really a broad scope of different imaging technologies that we offer. And at the moment, these comprise about 45 different technologies in this field of biological and biomedical imaging, which are offered by 112 individual imaging facilities, which are represented by currently 25 EURO-Biomaging nodes. And very similar to INSTRUCT, we are represented by 16 EURO-Biomaging ERIC members, 15 countries, and 1 international organization. And for your information, I have brought this slide here, which illustrates nicely with the flags which countries these are that have bundled their imaging platforms and opened them to the scientific community in Europe in EURO-Biomaging ERIC. So EURO-Biomaging offers open access to biological and biomedical imaging technologies, as I said before, but even more importantly, in my view, is often also the support offer from the expert technical staff on site at the different imaging facilities to support the researchers in their projects. In addition, we are offering image data repositories and image data analysis tools and workflows, as well as training opportunities for everyone, meaning training for staff, training for users, basic level up to advanced level. But how can you find us? This, again, will remind you a lot about Instruct. Often we regard ourselves also as kind of sister organizations and refer to each other like that. So some years ago, we were looking for an ideal management system for the users, and guess what? It's ARIA. So the EURO-Biomaging services, the EURO-Biomaging web portal is based on an earlier ARIA version. And we now provide then access to the scientists through our web portal to submit their proposals for access, to find new training opportunities that they are looking for, and to access the data services. So a typical access would look like this. A researcher would search for the technology and the node they ideally need for their research project, and they would submit their proposal through the EURO-Biomaging portal. In a second step, this proposal would be scientifically evaluated, and advice might be provided to the user for optimal project submission. Then it's forwarded to the node for technical advice, and after final approval by the node and agreement on the practicalities, the user is invited for access to come to the EURO-Biomaging node. The access is open to all scientists from academia and industry, and open to any career stage and area of expertise. They benefit from getting high quality image data for their research. They can explore a new area of research where they might not have the imaging instruments at home in their home institution. They can establish new collaborations on site of the node or with the facility there. Of course, this also supports multidisciplinary research. The user might get some extra data for the next publication or grant application. They can test an imaging technology before actually investing into it. They can improve and learn new skills from the experts at the EURO-Biomaging nodes. When I was preparing for this presentation and looking also at the EURO-Biomaging nodes, I think we never really highlighted so far that we host many of our services in the same location. So Instruct and EURO-Biomaging, as I will show you in the next slides, have several nodes and centers of excellence in common. And I think this is really a place where we should look and seek for the opportunities for providing together the services that the researchers might be looking for in advanced projects that comprise structural biology methods and imaging technologies. The first example is one in Czech Republic. So the EURO-Biomaging node in Brno is hosted by CzechTech. And as you know, also one of your Instruct centers is hosted by the CzechTech. In our case, this is one of the so-called mixed nodes. So it provides a very broad spectrum of advanced light microscopy and biomedical imaging, as is also highlighted by the list of available technologies below on the slide. Their key research and expertise areas are in vivo diagnosis and monitoring of disease, brain and mind research, cell and developmental biology, as well as plant research. And a focus of their work in the biological field is super resolution microscopy and quantitative phase imaging. So something maybe where we should look out for together at this interface of EURO-Biomaging and Instruct. The second node also is in Czech Republic. It's hosted by the BioChev. It's the node in Prague. It's a light and electron microscopy node, so it has only biological imaging offer, and it has a highlight in super resolution microscopy techniques and electron microscopy. This node has a really wide and deep expertise in covering most techniques that are cutting edge these days in advanced light microscopy. In addition, they are very strong in image data processing and analysis. Many of their customers or users are coming from cell and developmental biology. And again, this is the second node in EURO-Biomaging that is working also with or offering services to plant research. The third node that I would like to highlight here is the one in Finland. So in EURO-Biomaging, this is a multi-sited node with several locations across Finland, but the site in Helsinki again has the same host like the Instruct Center, Finnish Instruct Center has. So this node has a particular emphasis on high throughput microscopy in Helsinki. And the key research areas are cancer biology, metabolism, inflammation, again, cell and developmental biology, and they have also an image analysis platform. So something also to consider if there are users to the Finnish Instruct Center. And if they need light microscopy techniques, that maybe we could work together, and vice versa, of course. And last but not least, the EMBL node, I think the news kit on the block and Instruct. In EURO-Biomaging, EMBL was the coordinating partner during the preparatory and planning phases. Now the headquarters of EURO-Biomaging, the statutory seat, is in Finland, but the EMBL is still hosting the BioHub in Heidelberg. And here I think definitely there is the strongest interface between EURO-Biomaging and Instruct, also in the EMBL Imaging Center, which will be launched later this year. Okay, so you might be saying that's so nice, but we all know how difficult it is to provide common access to advanced research projects already with one technology platform, or let's say 2 technology platforms and 1 infrastructure. That's quite enough to deal with. But in the so-called Core Belt project, we could already demonstrate that it actually works. So we provided here access for scientists who came in with a very advanced research question to provide services from several different infrastructures. This could be structural biology and imaging, this could have been biobanking, this could have been marine model organisms, or curated databases from Elixir. And we had many partners here involved, so 10 of the life sciences research infrastructure from the S3 roadmap, representing about 20 of their service providers. And I think that the important part that really made this such a big success, and for many of the projects also led to publications just recently, was that we had the possibility to provide a lot of direct support from so-called common pipeline managers. So we had people in the Core Belt project who were there to take the users, to take the facility managers by the hand, to help with the communication and the management, so that for the users, this was not an additional burden, the same for the staff, but everyone was really benefiting from using this opportunity of having several services provided. The users came not only from academia, but also from industry. And I think it would be really, really great if we could continue these common service pipelines. And it is ongoing that we have still the representatives and staff, the people working at the facilities from all these different infrastructures, regularly coming together to chat, to present on the outcome of the previous projects, but also to identify new projects for the future. One example I just wanted to show here was the analysis of neuronal subcellular architecture by FIBSEM. So here we had a EURO-Biomaging facility, the CLAM facility in Utrecht involved in the Netherlands, and from Instruct we had the CSIC for the image data support involved. And this led to a publication which came out last year. Moving now from the more technical side to the outreach, networking, and communication. So Instruct and EURO-Biomaging really go a long way of common activities in this field. We went together several times to the ASCB meetings in the US. We also went several times together to the FABS meetings. And I brought you here one example from the FABS 219 in Krakow, where together with the infrastructure EU Open Screen, we had one booth together where we presented to the scientists at the FABS what are the advantages of these infrastructures, what are the services that we can provide to them. Because as all of you know, the scientific communities often are still not aware of S3 and this new landscape of European research infrastructures. And this is definitely something that from EURO-Biomaging we are highly interested in continuing also with the iNEXT-Discovery consortium and the other partners involved here. I would like to draw your attention to a website that maybe you know already, but in case you have not, it's really worth a visit. It's the lifesciences-ri.eu website. Here, the different infrastructures have set up their service catalog where you can direct your users if they have questions, what else is out there, and also to communicate to each other what are the infrastructures, what's the benefit. And you would also find outreach material for download and reuse in case you have to convince your dean next time, why is my facility important for the research here. What is also really nice to look at are the 3-4 videos that were produced recently highlighting the services and the success stories of the CORBEL project, plus the RI contribution to the SARS-CoV-2 research. Again, you can share these links with your peers, and we would be very grateful for that. And again, also Instruct is highlighted in these videos as well, of course. Last but not least, I would like to invite you. In EURO-Biomaging, we have a virtual pub meeting every Friday. This came up similar probably to this webinar series in spring last year, when the pandemic just started, because everyone was sitting at home, the facilities were closed. But since then, it has really developed. So we have now about 250 people on our email list who are regularly coming and listening to this virtual pub. And everyone is invited to show hands up and suggest a topic they would like to present at one of these pub meetings. It started very informally, and we still try to keep that character in the discussion. And we also are very open when it comes to the selection of topics. Here you just see one example for the upcoming seminar series in February. Please feel invited. We would really like to invite the iNEXT-Discovery Consortium to also present your work and ideas here in one of the upcoming meetings. And please be in touch if you're interested in this. And with this, I'm coming to the end of this presentation of how we could work together, how we can commonly reach out to users, and would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to get your questions.